Well, good morning and surprise. I bet you guys didn't expect to see me this morning, did you? Hey, Kevin, good to see you, my friend. How is Lakeland, Florida going? What's your temperatures down there? Usually it's getting pretty warm. So I'd be curious to see. We actually, funny that you are from Florida. In my journal, I journal every morning, and today, last year, we were on our way down to Santa Rosa Beach, actually, in that general area, 30A area. It was today, last year. So we're not going there this year. So let me know how Florida is. But surprise, yep, I'm live streaming today. If you were yesterday, you heard me say I wouldn't be live streaming today because I had to go to one of our offices that are a little farther away. It requires a little bit more drive time to get there. And well, we had to move that meeting and some other things. We're going to do a group photo. There's some scheduling conflicts that kind of came up, so not going. So today I decided to go ahead and go live stream anyway, do a live stream. But let me just start off with saying I'm sorry. And the reason why I say I'm sorry is because today's topic is going to be the same we've been talking about, like never ending. And I was just telling my wife this is like I hate that I have to go through and do this whole articles again about talking about where listings are being syndicated, the feuding going on with Zillow, Compass, MLSs and portals and all that kind of stuff. But that is literally all that's like going on as far as the big news and, really it makes a good conversation or anything like that. So I have to read about it. And then as I'm reading about it, I hear more and more, and then of course my opinions go crazy and I start listening to it and I'm like, oh, here we go again. More positioning going on, more, I don't know what you want to call it, posturing. You got to read between the lines on all these news articles and see what's really going on. But I will say, let's just do this, okay? Let me just set the stage just a little bit. As we're going through this article, maybe there's an opportunity for us to think through this a little bit differently. Even though we need to be paying attention about what this news is saying and what is all going on here. Let's use this as a learning opportunity to, as we read multiple articles in regards to this one specific topic, let's read through these articles, even though it has been constantly being talked about by myself and everywhere else we go, this whole portal stuff. And I wish I could avoid it. I wish I didn't have to sit here and constantly talk about it, but it's what is being shown in the news and it just is what it is. What we will do is, as we read this and we're getting informed about more stuff going on, what we actually get an opportunity to do is step back and observe and watch how media works, watch how headlines work, watch how business positioning operates, and we will learn at least how to read between the lines and maybe get a better understanding about how to read news in general and, be, kind of more diligent and discerning in what is being told to us. So even though this topic has been done endlessly by myself and every news media out there as far as the real estate industry is concerned, it is kind of an opportunity for us to kind of read through the media just a little bit and the lines to kind of get a better understanding. So let's just use that as an opportunity to even be informed and learn at the same time. Okay, does that make sense? I feel like that might be the way to approach this because it is getting really exhausting constantly talking about all this. I'm not gonna lie. Whoa, dropped my coaster. So I have a wooden desk, so I have to keep a coaster on there. I went for my coffee. I've spilt it a couple times. But yeah, so hey, Michelle, thank you for tuning in. I'm glad you were able to find me on YouTube. That was cool. Thank you for being here as well. And also, just for those that are watching on TikTok, I did actually change the camera angle a little bit. I did reposition it. I don't even know why I had it where I had it. This might be a little bit better. I had someone reach out to me last week on some settings and that kind of stuff. And this was one of the movements that I made. It's nothing big. It's just a slight move. But let me know in the comments what you guys think if this angle is a little bit better. The way I have it set up, I have two monitors going, and then I have a camera in the middle of the monitors, whereas my main like YouTube video, and then the top one is this like really kind of, well, it's not doing it now. It's like typically it like move with me. Yeah. That way, if I get out of focus and it's a smaller frame, it kind of follows me. But sometimes it gets a little squirrely, but it has to be on top of my monitor. So anyway, not that this matters. Michelle, hello. Good to see you. For me, I may not always be watching you talk, just listening, so the camera angle is good for me. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And that I'm actually glad you mentioned that, like the video part of it. Of course, that's a benefit, but this is kind of like a podcast in a way, right? It's like a live stream podcast, so you can just listen to it. I try, and I'm okay with improving on this. Like I really try to, even though like on the YouTube and those other channels, I share my screen. I really try to make sure that those that are not, able to see my screen or are just listening, like you, Michelle, that you can at least follow along. So, but if there is something that I'm ever missing or it's getting confusing, as long as you're not driving, feel free to stop me and ask, any kind of questions or clarification. I had that happen yesterday a little bit, like, what are we talking about? And I'm perfectly fine with stopping and kind of doing a quick little synopsis of that. So just know that's perfectly fine with me. All right. Anyway, all that talking out of the way, let's go ahead and get started on the actual show. But today I'll give you just a quick rundown of the articles we're going to be discussing. And like I talked about, it's literally going to be kind of redundant, but it is new perspectives and new angles and new movements and stuff going on in regards to the portal wars and what's going on with our syndication of our listings and what that might look like. So I've got quite a few articles. I doubt I'll get through them. You guys know how I go. But what we're going to be covering today, the first one we're going to be talking about, it says Google Home Search is back and bigger with MLS data, EXP listings, and etc. Okay, so as a matter of fact, this article, this topic was suggested by one of my own agents. Cassie, thank you so much for that. She sent me a DM and shared this with me where someone else was sharing this. And I didn't realize it was kind of coming back into play here. But 5 months ago, I actually went to my live stream. 5 months ago, I talked about Google and House Canary and what that syndication looked like and what they were kind of messing around with as a pilot program. And if Google got into the real estate industry and they started syndicating listings, what that might do. So 5 months ago, I did a live stream about this whole entire topic. And I made a prediction, even in that live stream. I said, look, if Google enters into this play where they start syndicating listings, really the first franchise or first national brokerage or anything like that jumps on board with this is going to have a major, upper hand because Google is broad. Everyone begins a lot of their searching starting with Google. So if Google gets into this arena, which it does appear that's what they're testing and what they're probably leaning towards doing, it does put Zillow and other portals on notice, like, ooh, this is going to get interesting. So we will be talking about this new article by Inman that they just kind of released, talking about the portals and what Google is now planning on doing. So we're going to talk about that. Then we'll do a comparison of that kind of positioning and what's going on there. The National Association of Realtor magazine website put out an article. It says, real estate heavyweights talk future of MLS. It says the MLS is one of the greatest things we've ever built. And we're going to talk through this. There are many points in here that I would agree with them. There's some that's like, well, nuance, but whatever. I would agree that the MLS is one of the greatest things we've ever built. It has been a great asset. But left unchecked and unmonitored can create a lot of issues, which is where we're currently at in regards to real estate and this whole syndication stuff, right? So we'll go through that. Then we will read an article by RIS Media, and it's an op-ed. So it's the future of real estate is not going backward to one size fits all, is the whole idea behind this one. And this is kind of building up on the narrative of this whole thing. We're trying to, today I actually took a step back and tried to get all these different opinions and perspectives. I will try, and I can be honest, I will try to not inject too much of my opinion, but it's going to be hard for me not to do that. Just because of the narrative that we've kind of been following. There are some things I'm probably will insert, but look, you're okay to come to your own conclusions, even if you disagree with me. That's perfectly normal and perfectly fine. I think that's healthy. I think a civil discourse is a good thing, and you might fully disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. No problem with that. So we'll talk about that one. Then we're going to this is a press release, I believe, in the fairness and advocacy category on Zillow.com in their news category. And it's titled, MRED is cutting Chicagoland buyers and sellers off from Zillow to advance Compass's business goals elsewhere. Okay. So we're going to read through this Zillow PR. Just because there's just a lot in this. I understand Zillow's position. They're kind of, and to be honest, as we get through this, you're going to see the desperation in it. I think they kind of begin to see some of the writing on the wall and they're scared. To be honest, that's what I see. When I read this PR release, it's like, yep, they're trying to do a lot of positioning here because it's not looking favorable for them. And so they've got to do something. Then I had 2 more articles. We'll see if we get to there. I might roll them over into tomorrow's live stream, which is fine. I probably will, just because that's a lot of conversations already. That's 4 articles. But know what might be coming at the end of the show or probably tomorrow is I'm going to get into knowing the neighborhood, not just the numbers, why community expertise wins, why really you need to be able to understand what is going on specifically in your community as far as the numbers and the nuances inside of that. So it's an article by Realtor.com. And then, and this will definitely be tomorrow. I will not get to this one today because I want to spend a little bit of time on this. I'm going to be going through it. I mentioned this yesterday in yesterday's live stream, talking about the Fed and how that works. So what we're going to be talking about is what is the Federal Reserve, and then how does it impact real estate? There's a little bit of confusion inside of our industry where you hear the Fed lowered the rate and you immediately assume that that means the mortgage rate will adjust accordingly. And that does happen sometimes. There's many reasons why that might happen, but it doesn't happen always. So we're going to get into the conversation about what the Fed actually does and how they control interest rates, and kind of go into the nuances about what the Fed is, because we hear that all the time. The Fed said this, the Fed did this, the Fed did that, so this gives us a little bit of a conversation here. So that will definitely be for tomorrow. Okay. So we're going to table that one until tomorrow. All right. So that's it. That's what's coming up in this show today. Let's go ahead and get started with what we have to talk about in the show. Let me take a quick break for coffee. You guys do likewise. I mentioned this before. It's just Squirrely Joe's. I don't know if you guys have ever tried it yet, but you really should try it. Hold on. I'm getting a little bit of spam here. Clean up the chat just a little bit. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the show. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam, and today we're going to be cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth that we can find inside of the news. We're going to look at the actual data, and I'm going to give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find opportunity. So if you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our first story. And this first story, like I said, is going to be coming from Inman, and it's going to be in regards to the topic of real estate portal syndication and insert Google. Okay. So Google is bringing home search listings back into their system as like a pilot program. Okay. I mentioned this before, but 5 months ago, I talked about this very scenario playing out versus where House Canary, which was working for a syndication type system with Google to embed listings inside of Google when people do searches. Now, the difference here, when we talked about it 5 months ago, House Canary allowed you to be able to pull up properties in certain specific regional areas, which is still the case with Google. But when they pulled up listings, it specifically went to the agent that had the listing. There was no ads being bought, or you had to pay to get certain ads or get certain leads like most of your portals charge. Google was just embedding this information inside of the search. Now, I have multiple times made this statement that if Google begins to get access to the data, that will start showing up in AI. And the whole foundation of the way people search for homes will drastically change along with it. Because think about it. When you go to Google right now and you type in any kind of search criteria, the very first thing that pops up is AI suggesting how to answer that question. And the faster Google can answer your question, the more likely you'll return back to Google, which drives more money into their pockets. So their goal is to answer questions effectively and quickly. And they're doing that more and more through AI. So if Google enters into the portal war, if you will, and starts syndicating listings across the country, that will then start happening inside of AI. Now, what does that mean for real estate agents? Well, if you look at the kind of what they're doing right now, the listing and all that is attached to the agent. So requesting showings and all that goes to the agent that procured the listing to begin with. They're not putting in a secondary party, but that's currently. We're going to read through this article here, and we're going to see if Google has any intentions of doing any kind of lead pay service or what that might look like. And what does this look like long term? So that's setting the stage a little bit about what's going on with this article. So let's go ahead and dive into this and read through this together. And feel free to ask questions. If you have a thought about maybe how this might impact your industry, or kind of an opinion, whatever, throw it in the chat and let me know. Okay, so I'll stop and we'll read that and we'll talk through this together. All right. Google Home Search is back and bigger with MLS data and EXP listings. Okay, there's just to kind of cut to the chase. There is a connection between EXP and House Canary as well as Google. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about. While coverage is still limited, data partner House Canary says 3 MLSs are now providing listings. So Google is now has, through House Canary, a syndication way to get listing data, okay? Google's experiment with displaying home listings directly in search results is resurfacing months after an earlier test and a brief shock through the residential brokerage world. I would agree with that. I immediately saw this article and I did a live stream about this whole thing, breaking down, I had a lot of suspicions about what this might play out like, and then it kind of went silent. Nothing else has been said up until yesterday. But House Canary, Google's data and brokerage partner in the effort, says the experience remains a limited pilot rather than a full public rollout. And this is true. It's very specific markets, very specific regions that are testing this out. So it's not all inside of Google right now. So don't expect to go to Google right now and be able to pull up results and look at homes and all that kind of stuff. That's not happening yet. Chris Rittiger, a spokesperson for House Canary, told Inman Monday that the company currently has 3 MLSs providing listings to the pilot. Here they are: CRMLS, San Diego MLS, and My State MLS. CRMLS serves more than 93,000 real estate professionals from 39 associations, boards, and MLS organizations, while San Diego MLS serves this San Diego area. And then most of you guys have probably heard of My State MLS. And it builds itself as a nationwide MLS that lets members list and search properties anywhere in the U.S. House Canary is also in conversations with additional MLSs. Okay, so House Canary is basically a portal that is a system that pulls all the syndication information and puts it in a way that Google can then read it and then syndicates that to Google. Okay, so that's the system. So House Canary is going out and talking to MLSs. Now, what this would imply to me, okay, that they might be doing a pilot program, but the fact that they're talking to more MLSs, we can make some conclusions here that they are going out and talking through scenarios and getting more and more input from other MLSs and other associations about how this might look nationally. Okay, we have to understand that would make sense on testing out a pilot program is to begin moving this, because if the pilot program works, you want to quickly be able to scale that up fast and quickly before another competitor can come in. So we have to be, very diligent understanding that House Canary is probably being very aggressive with this. And what I would even conclude from this, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if you start hearing of national franchises like even Compass and other places announcing soon that they've got a partnership with Google or House Canary. I could see that quickly happening, especially when you start talking about Compass in general, because Compass has been going out very actively talking to MLSs about syndicating their listings to those MLSs. And we'll get into that, like MRED up in Chicago, okay? And Zillow is having a fit over this. I mean, a major fit over this. This is still a limited Google pilot test program, not a full public rollout, Rittiger told Inman, adding that the company would communicate more broadly to the industry if things progress beyond the pilot phase. Okay, so right now, there really is very little discussion about this, but it's being discussed and it's being tested, okay? The renewed attention came after real estate analyst Mike Delpreet shared in a blog post on Monday that Google's real estate listings are back, with screenshots showing a sponsored Google search experience for homes for sale in Miami, Los Angeles, and Cleveland. Now, let me just test this. I don't know. Let me see. Hold on. I'm going to try to see if I can load up with that. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So this is more in the mobile search arena. But just for conversation's sake, I'm going to zoom in on like one of these. And I am also going to give you guys on TikTok a chance to be able to see this. There you go. This is what it looked like. So someone typed in homes for sale in Cleveland. All right. And this is what kind of came up. You see right here, it says it's got the property, it's got the price, it's got the details, it's got the listing. And notice it says eXp Realty, right? eXp Realty, eXp, right? And then you got Four Rivers. So there's a couple companies, but eXp is dominant. And then you see the details of the property there. But then look right below that, says contact an agent. Now, right now, it's defaulting to the listing agent. Now, could Google change that in the future and be more like a Zillow player? Probably could. Would they? Maybe. Right? Now, they're an ad generating revenue type based company, so that could happen. But this is what those search results look like. And this is embedded directly inside of Google. Notice that, right? All right. All right, so there you go. That gives you an idea. The renewed attention came after real estate. Yeah, we talked about that. The experience is not visible to everyone. One member of Inman's editorial staff was able to reproduce the results Del Prete posted, underscoring House Canary's description of the test as limited and unevenly distributed. Okay, so again, it's not everywhere, and more than likely you have to be geotagged in that specific area for it to even work. It's not like I can go to there and type in homes for sale in Cleveland. You might be able to, but I would say more than likely your phone and everything that device needs to be in that city for it to pull up, because that's the whole nature of a pilot program. eXp Realtor CEO Leo Parisia also confirmed to Inman that he has been able to access the Google listings experience and provided Inman with a screenshot showing eXp listings appearing in mobile Google search results for homes for sale in Miami. All right. Parisia said eXp's involvement traces back to March. So eXp's involvement goes back to March. This is when eXp announced its partnership with Come Home. Here's a connection for you guys. House Canary's consumer search portal. Come Home is a search portal that is owned by House Canary, okay? He said that eXp is sending all of its active MLS listings along with listings from Next Home, which eXp acquired on May 7th, into the Google pilot. Okay, so they're part of this pilot program. In most of the markets that are in the beta, it's only eXp listings. While adding that he does not view that as the ideal consumer experience, that's not the goal. Parisia framed the move as another way to give listings broad, non-exclusive exposure, not as an attempt to pull listings away from MLSs or portals. He said his preference is for coming soon and active listings to be entered into the MLS and then distributed broadly through IDX and other non-exclusive channels. He says this, I believe in non-exclusivity. I'm not trying to cut anybody out. I believe in transparency. Now, there's a lot of nuances inside of that statement. And I think there's a lot of that kind of aimed at their competitor Compass, to be honest. You got to put it into perspective here. Certain people have to take different positions for posturing for their own companies to make themselves seem more relevant and that kind of play. And there's a little bit of that going on here. You know, is Compass not wanting transparency? Are they not wanting that? Well, I don't know. You know, like they've been pretty active in going out and negotiating deals with MLSs and that kind of stuff. I think if I was to read through what I've seen, it does seem more like, to me, Compass is more upset with Zillow thinking that they control everything. That seems to be more of the fight, in my opinion, with Compass and everything else. I don't think there's like this big push for privacy and trying to keep things private and all that kind of stuff. I think it's more or less controlling the narrative for the agent themselves that creates the data to be able to control that data on where it goes between them and the seller. That would be the way I'd read that article. But anyway, House Canary courts, agents, and MLSs. House Canary has also launched a public page inviting agents and MLSs to participate in the pilot, describing the effort as a way to bring MLS listings directly into Google search. The page says that for participating MLSs, selling agents receive attribution and click to contact functionality at no cost. It also says active listings can appear in Google search results with no advertising spend required. Okay, so this is what's going on in the pilot program. Okay, that's what's going on in the pilot program. The pilot page identifies 8 live markets. California, CRMLS, and My State MLS are listed as participating in the Greater Bay Area and Greater Los Angeles, while Greater San Diego also includes San Diego MLS. In the remaining pilot markets, we have Greater New York, Austin, Chicago, Miami, and Cleveland. My State MLS is listed as the participating MLS. Now, just because if you might be on My State MLS, it doesn't mean that you are. It doesn't mean that just because your listings are on there, it's going to show up. It has to be in one of those markets, is the way that I would read that. Sorry, my nose is running. I'm trying to find a tissue. I don't think I have any. Sinuses are kicking in. All right, the move is notable because House Canary is not just a data and analytics firm, but also a licensed brokerage in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. That's interesting. House Canary is not a data and analytics firm, but also a licensed brokerage in all 50 states. That brokerage status has been central to the debate over the Google pilot. When the experiment first surfaced last year, critics questioned whether House Canary's use of IDX listing data to power Google search placements crossed from display into advertising, potentially implicating broker consent and MLS advertising rules. Now, if I go back to 5 months ago, and I'll have to go back and look at my live stream in the article that I went through, it did seem to me that House Canary was actually going in and talking to all of the MLSs and getting information from them and getting approval to do what they're doing. So as of right now, the way I understand it, House Canary did not do anything wrong. The question more or less is, will all MLSs be okay with that, and all brokerages be okay with House Canary being a brokerage and syndicating our properties for us to Google? I could see a problem there, right? I could see that being a problem. Domino, my state MLS looks interesting. Anyone use it? That's a great question. Let me highlight this up there for you. Yeah. Does anyone use my state MLS? I don't know. I'm trying to think if I've had any agents use it. It seems like I have had an agent use that before. And you know, this is kind of the difficult thing about the way MLSs even work, the way they actually are beneficial, is you got to have a big adoption rate to make it beneficial for your area. So my state MLS works great in a lot of areas where there is a dominant use of it, but it's really hard to get the benefit of it when you don't have an area that is using it. So like in my area, it probably wouldn't serve the largest purpose because there's not very many agents on there, therefore there's not very many listings. So as far as using it as a search portal to find listings and that kind of stuff, probably very difficult. As a referral, relocation type networking experience, there's a good argument for it. So if the cost makes sense into your budget and it's beneficial to be able, because you have a large, maybe you live in an area that's a large transient or second home market. I'm currently in one of those. I'm in a lake community. That is a big thing for us, is we have a lot of people moving from out of state into our city. So my state MLS could make sense because it's opened up the property I have listed in the areas that I get business from. So in that case, it would make more sense, right? If the area that I get more business from is also in my state MLS. So that would be my opinion of it. Now, I will pause just for a second, Domino, and just tell you is I would say I am 100% for a version of a national MLS. I really am. Just right out the gate, I think that would help us to be able to maneuver as real estate agents much faster, much better, and deliver a much better service to our clients. I really do. But anyway, thank you for your question. I don't really have the answer for it, but maybe someone else does in the chat. But that would be my kind of perspective on it, like the benefit and the non-benefit of it. That's how I would answer that question. Let's see. Yeah, and we're going to skip on down. Multiple paths for consumers. It says the lead routing structure also appears more nuanced than a simple portal-style handoff. Rediger said listing agents have a direct click-to-contact option within the Google experience. But he also said agents advertising through Google Local Services ads may appear within the interface, and that those agents pay Google for local services ads. So if we just read through this, we don't know. Okay? Here's what typically happens. If you've got a new startup going on and a new pilot program going on, it's a whole lot easier just to do something for free for a while until a major adoption rate begins to happen. And once the adoption rate begins to happen through that syndication, we saw this happen with Zillow and Realtor.com and all that, the model begins to change. So right now, Google is playing nice with listing agents. If you get a listing and you syndicate with them through House Canary, which not an option, by the way, this is just a pilot program testing in very specific markets. But if it opened up, nationwide, okay, hypothetically here, then if it's syndicated right now, they're playing nice, right? Your listing shows up and you are, as the listing agent, get the contact if they want to request a showing or call for information. But what's actually being said here is there is a way for agents, and there always has been, for agents to advertise their, their profile and stuff on Google and create ads. And then if you're an agent that has good reviews and all this kind of stuff in that area, there's a higher likelihood that in the search results, you could be pushed to the top of being the contact for properties. That kind of play could be very easily done for Google. But I will say this is where Zillow is being, and Realtor.com and all these portals are being put on notice just a little bit. Because I could see this being a much better benefit to real estate agents marketing and paying for advertising on Google than Zillow. I mean, here's the argument. Zillow, people are going there specifically for one thing and one thing only: buying and selling property. They're looking for property, majority of them. People are going to Google asking all kinds of questions, okay? Google, inside of your business profile, gives you the ability to add reviews and content and blogs and links and everything else to posture yourself as an advisor and a knowledgeable person in the industry. So when somebody is doing searching in your area, which they geotag everybody, and your name comes up, and to answer some of their Google-related questions, you increase the likelihood that you're probably going to get a lead, directly or indirectly, because of the ad or the reviews or whatever. So this broadens this perspective where the agent themselves get to control the marketing about what's being put out there and takes it away from the benefit of the portals, right? So this is the argument I would have, is like, this is where places like Zillow and Realtor.com could be in trouble if this rolls out. Okay, let's see. Users should try the experience directly because there are multiple interactions paths. That distinction could matter to MLSs and portals because much of the early concern around the pilot centered on whether Google and House Canary were simply displaying listing information, turning IDX listings into paid advertising inventory, or moving closer to the lead generation model dominated by Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, and other portals. Okay, this is all the scenario. We don't know any of this yet, guys. We don't know where this is going to land. House Canary declined to comment on specific brokerage participation and said it would wait until the pilot is farther along before discussing how this business model will ultimately evolve. Okay. All right. The portal implications remain unresolved. The Google pilot first drew industry attention late last year after House Canary's come home listings began appearing at the top of some mobile Google search results in select markets. We talked about all this. Yeah. The pilot also raised immediate questions about whether Google could eventually become a more direct competitor to Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, and other search portals, particularly if the company were to pair listing inventory with paid agent placement, tour requests, or other lead generation features. Others in the industry have framed the deeper question as whether home discovery itself could shift closer to search behavior and buyer intent rather than traditional portal browsing. And this is where there's a lot in that paragraph, all right? If will it change? I would absolutely say yes. The way we search for things is changing. It's already changed. I go to Google and I ask more like engaging type, conversational type questions. And I talked about this a while ago. Like it's going to change where I'm going to go in as a buyer. If I know listings are being shown up there and agents are on there posting information, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ask questions like, hey, I'm a family of 5 moving to this town in this place, in this state, whatever, and I need these type of things, and this is the benefits that I need. This is my job that I'm going to be doing. This is the interest that I like. This is what I like doing, all that kind of stuff, right? Then Google, with AI, is going to syndicate and build the entire narrative based on that question. And it's going to give me the ideas about the general location by where I should be looking. It's going to use all that information. It's going to then find listings that fit within that demographic or that area that I'm wanting to look at that fits what I'm looking for as a home buyer. This is not a big leap at all in the process of search. This is what we see already happening on almost every single industry. So if they start syndicating listings, yeah, that's going to happen. And that's where the agent that is the influencer, the one that is an advisor, the one that brings more to the table than the everyday agent could actually win this entire argument. Because if they have more videos out there, more social media providing value back, answering these type of questions, you're going to start showing up in the search results. And a matter of fact, that's exactly what happens. Like when I do the shorts and stuff, like I was doing a search this morning talking about this very thing. One of my shorts was in the very top results of Google. So that right there is an example, right? It's like if you keep putting out content like that, you become the voice that people then want to hear. They then push you up to the top, right? Okay, but anyway, analysts at the time, like Wave Group managing partner Victor Lund, were divided on the threat to Zillow and other portals. Some saw little immediate financial risk, while others viewed the test as a potential long-term challenge if Google were to scale the experience nationally and move farther into real estate search. Look, this is not. I don't think it's difficult to go at all into the arena to say that this is a threat to Zillow and other portals. It absolutely is. Most of the time, people that even end up on Zillow get there through Google, right? Like they get there through Google. Now, not all, but that's still a majority of their web traffic comes from Google. So if Google starts, generating and answering that question as the gatekeeper to that information, why go any farther? So it's just not a reach for me to say, yeah, Google is totally going to get there. Why wouldn't they get there? There are search results. Data and listings is criteria that keeps people on Google's platforms and using their AI model, right? Yeah, it makes sense. We're talking about a very large industry. People love real estate. Even when they're not buying and selling, they search for properties, right? Most real estate agents get into real estate because they just love looking at houses, right? This is a big fascination in Americans. So it just makes perfect sense to me. Holy moly, I've talked about that forever. This is what I do, man. I try to get through articles, but dang, it takes me forever. There's so much to talk about. All right. We got to move on. I want to get to some of this other stuff, but I've got to kind of hurry. I don't know what you guys' schedule is. My schedule is kind of freed up, so I'm actually free until 10. So you got to go. I get it. You can come back and watch this later, but I've got a little bit of time now. All right. This next one, we're going to be talking about real estate heavyweights, talk future of MLS. The MLS is one of the greatest things we've ever built. I don't agree. I don't disagree with that. I totally agree. It is one of the greatest things we've ever built inside of the real estate industry. It has launched many careers and it's been very successful. I love it, right? I still value the MLS tremendously. I do think reform needs to happen though, guys. I really do. I think we've lost this portal war type stuff for a while now because we've just been giving it all away for free. But anyway, whole nother thing, soapbox. I'm trying not to give my opinion too much. I'm letting you guys, but it's really hard. All right. James Dwiggins, Bess Friedman, Leo Parisia, notice that name from EXP, and Nikia Wright underscore the importance of complete and transparent multiple listing services and the unintended consequences hiding listings from lenders, agents, and consumers can cause. Okay? Now, setting the stage just a little bit, this is going to be kind of a play against Compass and what they're pushing for. Okay, so a little bit of an underlining current here that I can already kind of see in the narrative, which is fine. I mean, there is an alternate opinion in regards to these type of things, and there's some valid points that they make in this article too, in against what Compass is trying to do. I don't think they go all the way there though. That's just, again, I'm trying not to put my opinion in. I'll read this article and let you guys decide, but I try not to lead into too many things, but. All right, who do we have here real quick? You guys heard the names. Nikki Wright, she is the National Association of Realtors CEO. Okay, so she's weighing in. We already know who Leo Parisia is. He is the eXp Realty CEO. Brown Harris Stevens is CEO of Bess Friedman. Next Home president is James Dwiggins. Okay, so put this in comparison here. eXp and Next Home just joined forces. Okay, so that just happened. And then you have NAR, National Association of Realtors CEO Nikki Wright. So just to understand, the people speaking here are very pro National Association of Realtors, which is great. I mean, I have nothing against them. But there's a little bit of a bent here to where they have to make sure that the MLS is dominant in the narrative. That's because that is the National Association of Realtors, portal. It is their system, right? So there's an element of protection that needs to happen. And so there needs to be conversations in regard to this. So let's get into this. When a big discussion is on the table, you try to gather as much information as possible. 100% agree, right? We look at all angles. You weigh options based on research, and your opinion may change based on the completeness of that data. Agree 100%. Buying a house, arguably the most consequential financial decision for most people, is no different. I agree. And I would put into there, here's the thing, and maybe we differ on this, but to you, National Association of Realtors, who should the buyer and seller be talking to for that information? National Association of Realtors. Who should they be going to for that information? Right now, a very important conversation is happening around the completeness of real estate's listing databases. These are valuable data repositories that agents, brokers, and appraisers everywhere rely on to counsel their clients, and that power consumer sites like Realtor.com, Zillow, and Redfin. Here's the thing. I agree. Okay? These are valuable data repositories that agents, brokers, and appraisers everywhere rely on to counsel their clients. They exist because of the agents going out and procuring the data to put it into the system. Okay? And yes, there is power in the consumer sites like Realtor.com, Zillow, and Redfin. I don't disagree. But what when that power shifts to where these sites think that they control the power? Just saying. Because that's kind of where we are, right? That conversation has been dominating real estate industry debates lately. And in several episodes of NAR Realtor News Change Agents, transparency emerged as a common thread. Transparency. Brokerage leaders Leo Parisia, Bess Friedman, and James Dwiggins each offer their own twist on why equal visibility of the residential market is a standard worth fighting for. I would agree. Okay, there is a standard worth fighting for that should be decided by realtors, right? Should be decided by realtors with zero outside of our association pressure. That's what I would add to that, right? That I would remove Realtor.com, Zillow, and Redfin from that entire conversation and make sure that we're staying on point, that the National Association of Realtors and realtors are the one that set that standard. A pricing problem. Looking at real estate from a global perspective, the US and Canada are the only two countries that have organized MLS cooperative system where it's a transparent market, said Leo Parisia, CEO of eXp Realty in a conversation with NAR CEO Nikki Wright. Parisia's company has more than 83,000 agents and operates in 29 countries. Parisia said the US and Canada are far friendlier for buyers compared to other eXp Realty markets, and he called the two countries' MLS systems the envy of the world. Without the MLS, local housing data isn't easily accessible, he says, making it a lot harder for mortgage lenders to determine a home's value. Therefore, they may be more cautious and require buyers to cough up bigger down payments before considering financing. What the rest of the world has is a pricing problem, he said. When you're not sure what stuff's worth, guess what financing looks like. It looks like 70% loan to value, 60%, or 50%. Low down payment lending is like 3.5 or 5 or even 10 down. All that disappears in a confusing, opaque market that doesn't have real-time data. Now, I have not had time to veg out those numbers, okay? It is very easy to make statements like this when you're in an interview process. Here is the interesting thing about all of this, though, okay, is there's an argument being had that we are the most beneficial for the buyer, okay? Buyer has more access to more information. Who's arguing that? And I'm trying not to insert my entire opinion into this, but there is one group that has not been mentioned in this entire scenario, and it's a problem. It's a problem. They're not mentioning the seller. You're saying that all the data and everybody else benefits from that, and there's a benefit there, but does all of that help the seller? Okay, when you are licensed in the state, you are governed by fiduciary responsibilities to your client. That means your client, when you are a listing agent, is to the seller. Is there information that jeopardizes the benefit to the seller? They didn't say anything about the seller. Nothing was mentioned about the seller, right? Damien, I like an alternative that does not have as many rules as the MLS. I have a problem being told what to do. Example, I want to start a coming soon campaign for a listing I signed for September, but I can't. Yeah, see, in this, Domino, and I apologize if I'm not saying your name right. I do apologize for that, but I'll highlight this. Munn says, I know year over year. Yeah, okay. Elaborate on that, Munn, if you don't mind, what you're actually referring to that. I might have missed what that might be about. But to Domino's point is this is the entire kind of position and argument behind this whole thing, is that as private entities, as private owners and businesses, okay, we create a product and we have the right to market that product however we want to. And then if you layer a licensing law on top of that, we owe a fiduciary responsibility to the seller to do the best positioning that we possibly can for that property. And there are scenarios where beta testing that property makes sense. You know, if you look at this right now, and one of the arguments they're making right here is like talking about how, and I could even make this argument where he starts talking about how the numbers get skewed, and it looks like what is the loan to value and the value of homes and all that kind of gets skewed because we don't have all the data. Well, that argument works the same way as a coming soon argument when you're talking to your seller. So we take that same kind of logic and we apply it to a listing appointment. So again, they're negating the seller position altogether in this whole entire conversation. If I'm sitting down in front of my seller and I'm going in and we're in a transitorial type market right now, right? Values have went all kind of different directions. We are then put into pressure to make sure that the numbers that we come to, that the pricing of that property is correct, but yet we don't have the data to go there. Like, we don't know specifically what that property is going to bring because we don't even have a lot of comps to come up with that price. And we all know how the property is decided upon value. It's based on what the buyer wants to pay for it. That's the value, right? So we make an educated guess on what that is. So the argument to say that the numbers are all skewed because we don't have all the data and it can cause a loan to value issue. Well, this could actually help fix that problem. Because if, like Domino is arguing for here, where you can take your property, test it out in the market in a smaller region to see how the market responds before making that a public stance of data that every single portal takes and runs with and creates a historical narrative that only benefits the buyer, you're able to test it out in the market. See what people think about their price. Do you get any showings? Do you not? Do you get some feedback and make some corrections? Do some upgrades, do some painting, whatever it might be, right? This is the benefit of this type of scenario. And there's many more. That actually will help the data be way more accurate. So when I do put the property full-time on the market, I have a better price. So then when you start looking at the data then, it's a more accurate reflection about what the market's actually doing. So this is the way data works. The only argument that they're making right here, and again, I'm sorry, I'm going into my opinion here, but it's buyer specific. This positioning is because Zillow, portals, and all that kind of stuff are putting pressure on this. It's the way we've always done it. But if you remove the portals, it puts the agent in the position to be the one that the consumer's coming for to get the information from the person that's a professional that navigates this every single day of their lives. Every single day of their lives. It puts the control back in their hands, right? So great statement, Domino. Thank you. It's great. Yes, great point. All right. That's great. Good conversation. Looking at real estate, we talked about that. Trust is at stake. Likewise, James Dwiggins, founder and president of Next Home, cast the MLS as a model example to the world despite its flaws. Yeah, look, trust, data. Data is absolutely needs to be accurate. Nobody's arguing that the MLS should go away. I mean, even Compass is not arguing that. They're going out making partnership deals with MLSs. The only argument Compass makes is agent first. The agent that is going out, generating the business, that has a fiduciary responsibility to the client, should be the one that gets to say. Nobody else outside of that agent and their client. Okay? That's the argument. Go spend time in another country where there isn't one, and you will think that this was the greatest gift ever given to you as an industry, Duigan said in a conversation with NAR Chief Marketing and Communication Officer Bennett Richardson. Because in that world, you have no idea what's for sale. You have no idea what stuff's sold for. You have no context on how to do your comps. Everything becomes such a mess. Okay. Look. It doesn't become a mess. You know why? That people still buy. People still sell. People still need homes. They still need buildings. They still need things. They still need land to build on. It doesn't change anything. It changes where they go to get the information. Okay? We live in an information age. The one that controls the information wins. And who's controlling all the information right now for the consumer? Who dictates to us what the information looks like? Okay? See this, guys? So you're saying the argument here is like it's just a mess over in other countries because they don't have the MLS system that we have? Well, first of all, no one's trying to get rid of the MLS. Okay? So the argument is just like, what are you arguing for here? Like, what's the point here? You're just trying to posture that the MLS is great? Well, who disagrees with that? I think the MLS is excellent. I think it's great. It's accurate. It's got great data. I think it's got some broken things and some flaws, so let's fix it. Speaking in favor of policies that deliver a comprehensive database of homes for sale, Dwiggin said, I have been very passionate about the fact that if you don't speak up now and say what is right and wrong and hold leadership accountable for decisions that will hurt your career, then we are going to end up in a very scary spot in the next few years. Yep, I would agree with that, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's like, if you read all these articles, you begin to see a bigger picture, guys. I don't know where he lands. I don't know. Maybe he agrees with me. I don't think so. I feel like he's on a different positioning here. I don't know what his benefit is for the company or what his angle is. Maybe he does agree with me. I don't know. I don't know. If the industry loses consumer trust, Dwiggin said, it's game over. And like, again, I don't think anybody's saying the MLS is where we're trying to eliminate. I don't know. I've not read that. That's not my position. I don't know of any Compass that's saying that. They're navigating all MLS policies. They're arguing for some of it need to change, which would be his position as well. I don't know. If we don't get this right, our industry will get wiped out, and it's not because of AI. It's because the consumer doesn't trust us anymore. It's because we allow decisions to occur that harm the consumer. Yeah, guys, like, I agree with that. Like, I do. I agree with that. But as far as when it comes to trust, National Association of Realtors, if we go back just a few years ago, we were involved in a big lawsuit over all this buyer representation and all this kind of, co-sharing of commissions, because I went in with a seller and negotiated, what I wanted to charge for that thing. And then I decided to split it with a buyer agent that brought me a buyer for my seller. Right now we have these buyer rep agreements all because of that. When we start talking about like a lack of trust, well, the whole positioning of NAR had hurt some of that. Their positioning on the way that they protected agents, and they got confused about who they serve. When they started becoming more like a police state, when the association started becoming more like a police state to the agents that are members of their association that run that association. When the association was weaponized because you got local bodies of agents serving as boards to weaponize that board against other brokerages, right? That hurts. That hurts trust. Those things crumble things. So, but again, nobody is arguing that National Association of Realtors is irrelevant. Nobody's arguing that MLS is not. Days on the market is valuable. Competition is necessary. I don't know what all this is about, but it says you can't, let's see, Bess Friedman, CEO of Brown Harris Stevens, a major player in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, took aim at private listings in a conversation with Wright, explaining that playing fast and loose with data points like days on the market is not consumer friendly. You can't manufacture the market. The market is the market. It needs to flow freely for true price discovery. So when you manipulate that, you're hurting the buyer because they're not getting the right information to make decisions about their life savings. Okay, again, it's the buyer. Why is it always the buyer? as an agent, when I go list a property, I don't have a fiduciary to the buyer. I'm trying to maximize the amount of money for my seller. You as an agent, you are an agent, Friedman. What about your seller? What does the days on the market, if they rack up because you didn't price that property right and your marketing was confined to do it the way everybody else did it, therefore you couldn't do anything different, how does that benefit your seller? That's the argument here, guys. Like, again, she says buyer. What about the seller? It says private listing networks aren't really about protecting seller privacy, she said. There are tactics like non-disclosure agreements for that. Okay, that's only one argument. What about the rest of the argument? She's only mentioning one. The other one is making sure that the marketing, the updates, the paint, the price, everything coincides with that market before any days on the market start being accumulated, before any historical data starts being accumulated. So you get the home positioned in its best way possible before going live with it. Okay? This is the same argument that you would apply to any other industry out there that we just simply can't do. Restaurants do it all the time. Soft openings, right? Software companies do it all the time. Beta testing, right? Like, this is not a new way of creating a product and testing its response to the market. Domino said, sorry, I'm a few minutes behind in the feed. Oh, no worries. I just want to make YouTube content until my seller finished building their new home. I want to build a demand before we go live to the benefit of my seller. Yes. Okay, look, that is exactly the point, right? You're limited, and that's a great one. We start talking about new construction. New construction is a big one, right? When do you put it on the market? When can you market that for your builder? Once it's under roof, but then nothing's finished yet? You can't begin doing any kind of marketing for that builder, right? This is a great point, a very good point. That's another scenario that she's negating here. It's not just about seller privacy, guys. A private listing network is something else, Freeman says. That is where one company has all the listings for their firm, and they're not putting them on the open market. They're keeping them within one company, and they're saying they're not on the market, but they're on their sort of market or pre-market, and thousands of people know about it. I find that to be a real issue. I would just disagree. I mean, if I go out and I have a seller and I can talk about every version of marketing that could benefit them, and we have a discussion at that kitchen table with them, and I have every single option that I can go through with them that could benefit them on marketing their home, I should be able to do that. I should be able to do that. Again, I'm focused on the seller. The seller. That is who my client is. I have no idea who this random buyer is. None. None whatsoever. I don't know them. Competition is necessary. At Housing Wire's annual conference, The Gathering, in April, Rice said the association must walk a fine line on private listing discussions. Over the past 3 years, the association has worked to de-risk its portfolio of rules and reinforce local discretion and flexibility in MLSs. I would agree. I think there's a lot of discussion. I think we're heading in a good direction. But I think when you start posturing like she's doing right here, Bess is doing, this is not the entirety of the story. It's one point. If you're gonna weigh in and give me your opinion, I think you should go all the way and talk about all nuances here. And I would agree that the National Association of Realtors has made major good movement in that direction. I've seen that. I think all of you guys would agree you've seen that. That they have done that. There's a lot of MLSs that are rolling back a lot of the coming soons and private listings and what that looks like. There's some really good productive discussions happening. And I think that's just good. That's how reform happens. We don't just do things the way we've always done them because we've always done them that way, okay? Because if we do it that way, there are certain people that just keep gaining more and more power. There's more and more power, more and more power. When asked what the future holds for MLSs, she explained that it's up to MLSs and brokerages to work together for the consumer. Yes, and the consumer, mind you, as just a final reminder before I wrap up this article, the consumer is buyer and seller. Insert both into the discussion. If you're going to have an article like this, insert both into the discussion. All right. Okay. Okay, here we go. We're going to the next one. This is an op-ed. It says the future of real estate is not going backward to one size fits all. Okay. We're not going back. Everything's kind of changing. Let me get the article back up. It kind of got off center here. Hold on. Okay. There it is. All right. This article here is by Josh Jarboe. Is that right? Josh Jarboe is broker owner of Remax Empire Buyers in Kentucky. This is by RS Media. Joe Hayden, in his recent op-ed, criticizes brokerages for innovating outside the MLS while simultaneously admitting sellers deserve choice and flexibility. You can't have both. See, this is why I chose all these kind of articles, and these are all written within the past 24 hours, guys. This is the discussion that's happening. I can't avoid it. But yeah, you can't have both, right? You can't have both. The market is evolving, and some brokers are uncomfortable because they can no longer control where consumers search, market, and transact real estate. Yep, they can't control it. Yes, the MLS is critical infrastructure. Nobody seriously disputes that. Nobody. I don't see anybody saying the MLS is worthless. Oh, we need to get rid of it. We need to disown it. That's not the conversation. Cooperative compensation and centralized listing data helped create the most transparent housing market in the world. But pretending the MLS should function as a sole gatekeeper of exposure forever is not consumer advocacy. It's protectionism. I'm going to protect what I've always done and what I own and what I have. It's not forward thinking. It's not observing from all perspectives. It's pigeonholed into one. And notice that last article. It was pigeonholed into one. Buyer perspective. Sellers were not mentioned. Sellers do not have identical goals. Some want maximum public exposure on day one. Others want privacy. Some want to test pricing quietly before going fully active. Some want to avoid disrupting children, tenants, employees, divorces, health situations, or high-profile careers. The idea that every listing must follow one rigid distribution path in order to protect the greater good is outdated thinking. See, you can see exactly why this article makes sense, right? It's a response to the other articles. I would agree with this. It's like you're focusing on one. Zillow and all them focus on one. NAR and that whole entire opinion piece, an interview, if you will, was focused on one, the buyer. What about the seller? That isn't consumer that isn't consumer protection. That's forced uniformity. The argument that private exclusives and pre-market strategies inherently harm buyers falls quickly under scrutiny. Buyers are not entitled to immediate access to every property the second a seller even considers moving. What makes you think the buyer has any claim or right? What makes you think that Zillow, any of these portals, have any right to claim and have access immediately? Why do you believe that's the case? A homeowner has property rights. They should absolutely have the ability to decide how their home is introduced to the market, assuming they fully understand the trade-offs. Now, that's the teaching moment. If you go down this road, it would be indicative of you as real estate agents to show the seller and explain the trade-offs for going about any one way or the other. There is a risk by not mass syndicating, less exposure. The most real estate agents going into a seller situation are going to be a proponent of that. They're going at max syndication. They need to sell properties to make money. But they need to be able to go in there and talk about all options with that seller while at the same time explaining their trade-offs. And let's stop pretending portals and large brokerages are the only entities monetizing consumers. Every brokerage monetizes consumers. Every portal monetizes traffic. Every agent monetizes transactions. That's literally how business works. 67 boy, hello to you as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping in. I mean, is that not true? Like, let's quit acting like one is monetization, the other one's not. They all do. It's the whole point of business. Oh my gosh. The issue is transparency and value delivered, not whether revenue exists. I do agree that not every MLS needs regionalization or consolidation simply for the sake of consolidation. I would agree with that. Bigger is not always better. In many local markets, including ours, there is very little practical benefit to handing more control to larger regional entities that lack understanding of local nuances, relationships, customers, and governance needs. Local control matters when done correctly. Nobody disagrees with that statement. I would agree. That is very important, right? Consumers today are smarter, more informed, and more connected than ever. The answer is not limiting options. The answer is disclosure, transparency, and professional guidance. And frankly, that's where the real problem in this industry lies. The bigger threat to consumers isn't a private exclusive strategy or a coming soon listing. It's the alarming number of agents and even brokers operating in this business with little understanding of contracts, agency law, negotiation strategy, disclosure obligations, evolving regulations, or basic professionalism. Consumers don't suffer because they have too many marketing options. They suffer because they hired the wrong representation. That's the conversation the industry continues avoiding. And that is true. If we lean more heavily into our professionalism, understanding agency law, contracts, and negotiation strategies, everything that he just mentioned right there, we become better, we become more valuable, and then more people come to us to be able to get that information correctly. And then it doesn't matter where the information's at. They're going to trust you as the agent. They're going to come to you. That's a great conversation to be having. A strong MLS matters, cooperation matters, transparency matters, but innovation matters too. Competition matters too. Seller autonomy matters too. The future of real estate is not going backward to a one-size-fits-all system where every brokerage must operate identically in the name of fairness. The future belongs to professionals who can educate consumers on all available strategies and help them choose the path that best aligns with their goals. And can I just go back now to the Google thing? Is if you are a knowledgeable advisor in this industry and you are posting information on, you have a blog, you have a website that has helpful information providing value back, you have social media posts that do likewise, maybe you're on Reddit and you're answering people's questions, which I encourage you to do because that is, if you notice inside of Google when you do a search, it's pulling up a lot of Reddit posts, so it's becoming a good source for information, apparently. So get in Reddit, start posting and answering people's questions, and you might find yourself being pushed to the top. This is where Google and listing syndication make more sense than any of those other portals. Because then me as an agent, I have the ability to become the voice of knowledge in my industry because Google's going to search all of it and bring it together. So the better I'm at my job, doing what he was talking about, understanding contract law, agency law, negotiation strategies, disclosure obligations, evolving regulations, professionalism, all those type of things, the better I'm going to come up in the search results, which gives the ability for me to be diligent in my profession, to be knowledgeable so I can help more people. And then Google and their searching might actually help me to be positioned better than any of those other portals would be, right? Now, that could change again as they get influence. Who knows? But anyway. All right. One more, guys, and I'm getting through these, and we're going to wrap this up. Like I said, I don't have to be anywhere until 10. So this one, I'm reading it because we are going to now go through a Zillow front porch fairness and advocacy news article, which is like a press release, in my opinion. Maybe that's kind of what it is. I don't know if it is or not, but that's how it reads. And really, it's just more of the data wars kind of escalating. And Zillow is taking legal action against MRED and Compass over the feed shutdown. Okay. And this is a post that was made on May 18th, written by our good old friends, Zillow. Okay. So let's read what they're saying about a lot of this. And more specifically, the MRED, which is the Chicago-based MLS and Compass partnering up and cutting the feed from Zillow. Okay? Let's hear Zillow. You're going to see an act of desperation here, in my opinion. It says, MRED has threatened to cut off Chicago area listing access unless Zillow agrees to participate in Compass's Anti-consumer hitting listing scheme nationwide. Oh my gosh. I mean, you can't get any more like headline hype than that. Anti-consumer hitting listing scheme nationwide. It's like, let's turn this into like some kind of big conspiracy thing. Oh, Zillow, you look desperate. I'm sorry. You looked so desperate in that statement. Yeah, Zillow, yeah, Compass in Chicago, MLS, this MRED is wanting to cut off your feed because you have this policy where if they ever go into a private listing network, then you won't let them ever syndicate those properties on your website. Okay, so let's just call it like it is. You're punishing them. So they just basically said, okay. That's all they said. Like, okay, we're going to do this anyway. This is what happens when a business and a company thinks that they have more power than they actually have. Okay, they are literally one shift away from the entire model corroding, and that would be like Google, right? So this is just a desperate ploy to try to posture themselves and position themselves into better light. And I got to be honest, as a real estate agent, this falls short on me. Matter of fact, it actually makes me not even care about them anymore. I'm just going to be fair. I think it's, yeah. They used the word last time I read this, they used insidious. Well, I would say, anti-consumer hidden listing scheme nationwide is an insidious statement. Anyway, this is so bad. All right. The organization that controls Chicago area home listings says it will cut Zillow's access to Advantage, a hidden listing scheme that the nation's largest brokerage is working to expand nationwide. Read that again. The Chicagoland MLS says it intends to cut off all local buyers and sellers from Zillow this week, unless Zillow agrees to display Compass's hidden listings on the other side of the country. That tells you everything you need to know about what this is really about. Yeah, it kind of does, Zillow. Hey, original, yeah, there you go. Love from Israel. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Oh my goodness, lobotomy. From TikTok. Oh man. Read that again. Well, okay, we'll read it again. The organization that controls Chicago area home listings says it will cut Zillow's access to Advantage hidden listing scheme. Yeah, why? Why do they want to do this? Oh, because they Compass first. You basically threatened Compass. You took a position and you said, hey, look, if you want to do what you want to do because your sellers and your agents agree to do that and we don't like it, we're going to not let you market your homes on our website ever. Okay, so if you do that, if you do what you want to do, you can't market on us. Okay, so the scheme is very simple. It's just we want to represent our sellers with the best fiduciary responsibilities that we can. So it's a scheme. It's a scheme in their opinion, right? So us as real estate agents that represent sellers, guys, if you want to do anything between you and your seller that Zillow doesn't agree with, you're scheming. But Zillow's for you. Don't forget, Zillow's your friend. Zillow's your friend. So they just alienated like what 300,000 agents that are part of Compass conglomerate. Oh my gosh, you schemers, you little schemers. The Chicagoland MLS says it intends to cut off all local buyers and sellers from Zillow this week unless Zillow agrees to display Compass's hidden listings. What's hidden? Compass has a website. MRED is an MLS. Agents in that area have access to that listings. Oh, it's just you. Your portal, your aggregate is not able to get to the information. So dumb. Zillow agrees to display Compass's hidden listings on the other side of the country. That tells you everything you need to know about what this is really about. This is not a dispute over rules. It is a deliberate effort to roll back the open, transparent real estate market that buyers and sellers have come to rely on and replace it with something that works better for Compass than for the people the MLS is supposed to serve. MRED and Compass decided a fair and transparent market was bad for their business. Zillow, what about Bright MLS and Real and all those other places, right? What about them? They're doing it too. You going to ban them? Gosh. What's actually happening? Okay, again, keep in mind, this is Zillow. Okay? Consumers are reading this. For more than a year, Zillow has been implementing what we call listing access standards. Okay. First of all, Zillow gets to decide what a standard is as far as listing access. They get to decide how everybody gets access to the data that the agent themselves, the listing agent, by the way, the one that you say are scheming, you get to decide and set the listing access standard for those agents that are representing those sellers and creating the data that you rely on to build your business model from, right? Got it. That's clear. That's very clear. A policy that says if a home is being marketed for sale, it should be visible to all buyers, not just buyers who work with a specific brokerage. The idea is straightforward. Sellers deserve maximum exposure, and buyers deserve to see every home available to them. Compass, the nation's largest brokerage, has built a business model that depends on the opposite. It routes listings through its own hidden network before or instead of putting them on the open market, keeping them away from buyers who don't work with Compass agents as they try to collect commissions on both sides of the transaction. Yeah, this is the straw man argument, okay? Creating the scenario and the position of your competitor that is not based on the entirety of what is being argued here. All right. MRED, which is supposed to operate as a neutral marketplace for all Chicagoland, recently rewrote its own rules to accommodate and protect that model at the behest of Compass, which holds 3 seats on MRED's board and controls nearly a third of sales in the market. Now MRED says it will cut Zillow's access to every Chicago listing unless Zillow abandons its transparency standards and starts showing a handful of previously hidden Compass listings in California, Florida, and Georgia. Not Chicago listings, but listings thousands of miles away. MRED is using its monopoly power over Chicagoland as a weapon to protect Compass's national business model. Zillow will not go along with it. What this means for sellers. Every Chicago area seller who listed their home on the open market did so, expecting the broadest possible audience of buyers. If MRED follows through, that exposure to Zillow's 235 million average monthly unique users disappears without their knowledge or consent. Okay. But if the agent is telling these type of things, they know mass exposure. Most agents want mass exposure. We want to move properties, guys. Fewer competing offers, less leverage, and typically less money for home sellers. MRED made this choice to protect the business model of the country's and Chicagoland's largest brokerage. Sellers who depend on broad exposure. What this means for buyers. When MRED cuts Zillow's feed, buyers will no longer see a complete picture of what's for sale in the Chicago area on Zillow, and the number of listings that are quietly circulated inside hidden networks, visible only to buyers who have agreed to work with specific brokerages, will continue to grow. This is a very small percentage of properties, guys. I mean, we're very small percentage. Will it grow? Well, yeah, probably. But again, an agent's going to be pushing for mass marketing when the property's not moving. They're going to be having conversation with their seller to get it mass marketed. I mean, it's absurd to think that we're trying to build this very private network and, I don't want my property to ever be syndicated anywhere. I don't want people to see it. I want it to be so secret that nobody knows it exists. What? Like, what kind of argument is this? Like, we as agents need to move property. So if there's a logical reason to kind of test the market and see what's going on with that property before we go mass marketing, great, let's explore that. And then as soon as we're ready, we're going to be pushing for mass marketing, okay? We're going to do that. The seller's going to want that. The agent's going to want that. We're going to want it on every single website. Every single website. Oops, I lost my article, looks like. Where'd it go? Let's see. Bizarre. Let me open up my link again and see if I can get it here. It went away. There we go. There we go. All right, let's get back into this. Some of those powerful players in real estate want to go back to the world. Zillow does not. In fact, just last week, a Compass executive published an op-ed saying the whole point of its hidden listing scheme. Wait. Saying the whole point of its hidden listing scheme, again, inserting that, is to create scarcity in the housing market to inflate demand and perceived value. He wrote that homes should be marketed like Ferraris, not loaves of bread on a store shelf that everyone can access. And he made the argument in the middle of a long-running housing affordability crisis. That means Compass is fine making the American dream more difficult and expensive to achieve, as long as it pockets more on each sale. Look, guys, again, straw man, this is not the argument. I mean, yeah, there's some elements to what he said there, but it's taken completely out of context here. What this means for agents and independent brokers, the harm here isn't limited to buyers and sellers. Thousands of independent agents and smaller brokerages across Chicagoland depend on Zillow to reach buyers and generate leads. No, actually, those independent brokers and agents can join MRED and have access to all those properties. Would you mind reminding me what scarcity is? Took it back in Unit 1. I forgot it. Oh, well, scarcity is just like creating where it's hard to find access to something. The word itself it's not a term inside of real estate. Scarcity is just the idea that it's limiting the amount of exposure of something. It's hard to find it. So yeah, there is a scarcity rule, but that's not what we're talking about here, just for clarification. Those agents stand to lose listing exposure and buyer connections through no fault of their own. MRED is weaponizing its monopoly power over Chicago listings to protect one competitor's interest at the expense of everyone else in the market. That is not what a neutral market infrastructure provider does. That is what a hijacked one does. See, this is just, it's so much stuff. It's positioning at its finest, right? This is very obvious. The bigger threat. What's happened in Chicago is not an isolated dispute. Compass has been systematically working to expand this model, securing influence over MLSs in market after market, rewriting rules in its favor, and using the threat of listing access as leverage over anyone who objects. The demand that Zillow display Compass listings in California, Florida, and Georgia is proof that Chicago is just the lever. The target is national. You know, the thing is these are real people, guys. Okay, like it's not like MLSs out there are these like little entities without logical, reasonable people governing them. Okay? So Zillow to act like Compass has this ultimate authority to be able to make these people to bend to their will and do whatever is simply absurd. It's simple. Compass and a lot of other agents are tired of portals like Zillow and many others dictating how leads are distributed and changing the model where we have to pay thousands of dollars to get our leads back and then immediately just changing it the next day and not knowing where we land. But yet you keep getting our listings and thinking you're saying you're for us and all this kind of stuff. They're tired of that. So Compass going in and talking to other MLSs about all this, let's be honest, Zillow, it's not a hard sell, okay? It's not a hard sell. It's not a hard sell. So the problem you don't like is you're losing. you're losing the argument. And you're losing it even in this. If this model spreads, the fragmented, secretive real estate market of a generation ago doesn't return to Chicago. It becomes a national standard, one in which buyers need to work with the right brokers just to see what's for sale. Nope, that's not true. Brokerages have access to the MLS, guys. It's not true. Sellers lose the competition that earns them a fair price and the infrastructure that's supposed to serve everyone instead of serves whoever has the most board seats. Nope. Again, not true. We've already talked about this whole live stream. Not true. What Zillow is doing. Oh, the hero. Let's go here. The hero is coming to save the day, and it's Zillow. Little grasshoppers. Remember Bug's Life. Keep saying it. Bug's Life. We have filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against MRED and Compass and asked the court to block any termination of Zillow's listing access while the case proceeds. We are fighting this. We are fighting this because it is the right thing to do for buyers and sellers and the agents who serve them. Oh, you're such a good guy looking out for us, right? No, it's your model. It's your business model that's in jeopardy here, guys. Come on. Come on. Are you telling me that if we don't syndicate, I as an agent to go out and list this property I don't want to mass market my property to sell it. That's the position. But yet you're for me, right? You're for me. Like, No, you're arguing against me here. I want to mass produce it, but I don't want to mass produce it where you guys think and you think you have all the power to set the standard on what syndication should look like. It's such an easy argument. Zillow was built on the belief that real estate information should be open and accessible to everyone. Okay, but that's your belief. But why should that be the case in every situation? Why is that the case in every situation? We've already talked about many different scenarios where it doesn't benefit the seller. So, okay, great. You were built on that. Where are we at right now? Information is available. And look, if Google enters that, Zillow, you're even in a bigger water, aren't you? We have spent 2 decades working to make that true. We are not going to stop now because a powerful brokerage and one MLS, multiples now, has decided buyers, sellers, and an open, fair marketplace didn't matter. Chicago home buyers and sellers deserve better. So does every market where this model is spreading. There you go. I'm wrapping this up. You know I have literally tried to avoid this topic. I say it every time, but it is literally all over the news. These articles were all within the past 24 hours. This is what's being talked about. You know, Zillow's got to make a response to what everybody else is talking about, and it's just a flat out mess. It's a flat out mess. And we have to cover it. We got to keep our finger on the pulse and really read through this. You can see the posturing, you can see the positioning, you can see the plays. I mean, come to your own conclusion. Doesn't matter. These are my opinions. I mean, as I read through all the different scenarios, to be honest, and challenge me on this. Everybody watching, challenge me on this. Send me, DM me, whatever. Anybody out there, send me an article, an opinion piece, an op-ed, whatever, that builds a really solid case that Zillow is right. I can't find one. There's nuances where I would say, like, we have to be careful and realize that MLSs and that structure, and we don't want to erode that. I would say, yes, I would agree with all of that. But I would push heavily back on anybody that says what I just read about Zillow and their opinion makes any logical sense in the world and doesn't just benefit Zillow. Okay? So, I mean, but I again, changed my mind. I'm totally okay with that. But as I read more and more of these articles, and they're every single day, I'm not seeing it. I see there's an argument for this beta testing with sellers and having that fiduciary with the seller that is beneficial. Now, I do think there needs to be some policy and regulations in regards to those things to shore it up and make sure there's a consistency and a reliability amount of the data. And I truly think the MLS is extremely valuable, but it needs reform. So, oh, me too. Yep. And I don't know your name. Is it Raja 496? Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm glad you agree. I mean, again, I'm open to changing my mind about this, but I have yet to see a compelling argument. I mean, even reading through that entire opinion piece by the National Association of Realtors and that conversation between, you know, the CEO of NAR, Nikia Wright, the EXP CEO, Leo Parisia, and then Brown Harris, CEO of Best Friedman, and then Next Home President James Wiggins, even reading through that and their opinions fell short, in my opinion, because they focus on one demographic and one demographic only, but yet these are real estate agents, and this is also the National Association of Realtors, you know, CEO, and the entire piece was all focused on the buyer. There was no mention of seller, the benefit to the seller. So if you're going to do a piece like that, NAR, if you're going to do that, position yourself to represent all parties in real estate. Like, come on. Do the whole thing. Do the whole thing. You should have had somebody in that piece that was arguing from the seller position. That would have been a fair and balanced report, guys. Who was the seller representative in that argument, in that positioning? Who? All right. I got to wrap this up. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll talk about knowing neighborhoods, not just the numbers, why community expertise wins. And then I'm going to work through what is the Federal Reserve and how does it impact real estate. We'll be back 8:30 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow and Thursday. So hopefully you guys can join me there. You can come back, watch me where I'm streaming today. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitch, actually. So you can follow me anywhere you would like to, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Greatly appreciate that. I hope I'm providing something of value. Even if you disagree with me, sometimes I get opinionated. It happens. As I read these articles, I can't help but get that way. But I'm okay with having some pushback. I think it makes it fun, actually. So I welcome that. But anyway, with all that being said, we're going to wrap up the show. Have an amazing day. I appreciate you guys greatly. That is your real estate brief for today. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you would like more of this type of content, and consider subscribing and following me to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. There is always so much more that I could be talking about, but we'll save all of that for tomorrow's show. We'll see you then. Take care and have an amazing day.